Hello and welcome back to another edition of Team Talk, coming out of this time round 19, and we're getting awfully close to the end of the season. And as you can see here on screen, it's a bit of a milestone week for myself. I ended up scoring a 2,782. That's correct, 2,782. And as you can see there, round rank for the round, of course, 19th overall. So yeah, fair to say I was pretty pleased with my performance coming out of the weekend. There wasn't really much wrong, which you'll see in a moment when I go through my team line by line in terms of performances. So yeah, I think overall I was in contention for the highest score for the round at one stage, and word was filtering through that there were some higher scores, and I just couldn't believe. I'll probably show you this anyway, might as well, seeing as though it's here. This was the best scoring team for the round. Just absolutely insane. Let me just swing it across here so I can see it a little bit better. Just one moment, bear with me. And you'll see there, incredible team. So this person, whoever they are, awesome job. Kerno they had in their team, and I thought it was perhaps a team that was made off the back of trying to sort of reach for the weekly prize. But to their credit, they're actually ranked 1,342nd overall, so they've actually got a pretty solid team. But yeah, obviously helped with Sicily, and yeah, likewise, Kerno, he was always going to have a day out against West Coast as his VC, which he locked in. Ended up playing Marek. So Marek was actually his lowest scorer for the round. So full credit to him. Has all the big guns, so I'll be interested to see how he actually goes for the remainder of the season. So tip of the cap to you. But you owe me some money, mate. You owe me some money. You owe me exactly 2K because I thought I might have been in the running for it, but it wasn't to be, of course. So let's jump back to my rundown of my team. So yeah, 2,782. Pretty happy, obviously. But you'll notice there as well that I've gone down to 0 trades, a big donut. I used my last trade on the weekend. You would have heard if you tuned in to the Thursday team sheet announcement live stream that I was thinking about potentially using my last trade to bring in Hewitt, Georgie boy Hewitt from Carlton. And I mean, the stars were aligning. He had Cripps out, he had Chera out, Matt Kennedy, he's obviously taken his CBAs already, as we saw the week prior. And then playing West Coast as well, the bunnies, I guess, of the competition at the moment. So stars were aligning for a pretty big score, and then obviously Laird being out, I needed to rely on someone off the bench to come good. So I ended up doing that, and I'll delve into that a little moment. But first off, the big takeaway, apart from the big score, was it actually halved my rank. It actually more than halved my rank. So I'm now sitting inside the top 500, which was my goal come the end of the season. So to hit that goal already just means I'm going to have to reassess things and potentially aim for a little bit higher, which is always a good thing. So to now sit 492nd overall, when I was inside the top 1K and then fell outside the top 1K last week, really does, put a little bit of a cherry on top, and it's put my season a little bit more back on track in terms of the way that I was scaling across the course of the season, which I'll give you a bit of a rundown later in this video. So let's delve into my team, and back with the chat with Hewitt. So ended up bringing Hewitt in off the back of Dev Robertson. Means I've got 33.5k in the kit, maybe for postseason piss up, end of season trip. Who knows, SuperCoach style. Ended up using Hewitt as my loop on option for Rory Laird, as I mentioned earlier. So yeah, he was a really, really nice fill-in option. And if I didn't go down that route, sliding doors, I would have had to have relied upon Matt Johnson with that 29, which wouldn't have been ideal. So that's almost, 98-point turnaround right there that I've gained, where a lot of people who were in my position who had to rely on M. Johnson means that they obviously fell behind the pack there. So I did prop up my week quite a bit off the back of that one move, so happy with that. Obviously, there is a bit of a takeaway from that same game, that Carlton game. Sammy Walsh, my boy, was absolutely tearing the game to shreds, was headed for a best on ground. I reckon if he kept on track and didn't get injured, he probably would have been right up there for BOG honours alongside Charlie Curnow, believe it or not, even though Charlie kicked 10 goals and had a blinder himself. But yeah, he ended up playing, what was it, about a quarter and a half potentially, maybe 2 quarters, and then went down with I say went down because in proverbial terms, because it was a bit innocuous. Like he wasn't sprinting, he was running sort of at high speed with an opponent. The ball fell short behind him. His opponent marked it, and he sort of stopped up and grabbed at his hammy. Didn't grab it as if like he jumped up and was like, shit, I've been shot in the leg type stuff, and then sort of just wandered off field. Yeah, that combined with the fact that I was at the game and spotted him post game. He was in tracksuits, wasn't iced up at all, looked to be walking okay. So I think all those things paired up before results are released at this stage as I'm recording this. I'm going to guess that I'm hopeful as well that it is on the minor scale of things and is only a sort of a minor sort of hamstring awareness, as they traditionally call it, where the players become aware of the fact that there's a bit of tightness in the area, and there's nothing with regards to severe tear or strain or anything like that. So am hopeful, and especially because I've only got 0 trades now to use. So yeah, hopefully it's just a 1 to 2 weeker and he can come back across the course of the SuperCoach Finals series, and especially in the run home as I sort of try and aim towards that top 100. I'm going to say top 200 at this stage, because I think top 100 around about 300 points away, which means that I'd need to make up around about 60 odd points, I think, every single week for the remaining 5 weeks to hit the top 100. So we'll go a little bit more conservative with top 200, but happy enough as it is at the moment, obviously inside the top 500. So yeah, I guess the silver lining here with Walshy is the fact that having brought Hewitt in does mean that there is a little bit of a positive correlation, I guess you could call it, with Walshy vacating the engine room, because I'll flick across to DFS Australia here and I've already prepped it on screen. But you'll see, let me just bring it across a little bit more. You'll see here that in terms of CBAs on the weekend, Walshy only had the 39%, was on track for, right up there with, 79, 80% CBAs exclusively in the engine room. But because he went off injured, it did obviously help. And then with Cripps not playing on the weekend and Chera obviously as well, it meant there was a little bit of slack to be taken up by the likes of Hewitt and co. So Hewitt ended up finishing with 73% CBAs, which was his equal third most across the course of the season. Ended up scoring, as you can see there, 127. But there were other sort of part-timer players that were getting a lot of overflow off the back of, Cripper and Chera being out, but then also Walshy going down with injury, with the fact that you can see there Dockers with 58% hasn't gone over 33% CBAs all season. So he had to pick up the slack there. Obviously paid dividends because he ended up scoring quite well as well for myself with 156. So I wasn't complaining, but at least again, positive correlation. And then Paddy Dow as well, 67%, hasn't gone any higher than 22% across the course of the season. So with the return of potentially Cripper and maybe Chera this week, it means that there's a couple more mouths to feed again. Substitute out Walshy, you'd think he's going to miss at least 1 week. Means that one of those guys can pick up the slack exclusively with what Walsh was having. And then I think there might be a drop-off with Paddy Dow first and foremost, and then potentially Doherty as well as a bit of a bit timer, sort of high defender pushing into the midfield at various stages. So I think I'm pretty confident that Hewitt's going to keep around about that mark between sort of, 65, 70% CBAs with the omission of, the loss of Walsh. And then obviously Kennedy not being there, as I mentioned as well. So let's roll through the rest of the team as well. So Nicky Dacos, 99, he was up there with one of my sort of backup VC options. He was actually tagged. I thought he was going to get tagged by Drew. Drew's a quality tagger and to his credit did a really, really good job. So I think that's a memo for other opposition clubs to do likewise and play, I guess a tight tag of that style on Dakes from here on out. So it'd be interesting to see if any other teams take note, but in the past they really haven't, because I think dating back to when Keys played well against him, no other team has really tried to put a similar tag on him. So would be interested to see nonetheless. James Sicily more than repaid the faith after being tagged out of the game virtually against North the week prior. Delivered a 171 and then a 58. So what's that? Across the course of the 2 weeks that I've had him and brought him back into my team, that's a 229 point accumulation across the 2 weeks, if my maths are correct. So it's an average of 114.5 that he scored across the 2 weeks. So in isolation, yes, he scored shit the previous week against North, but when you spread out the accumulated points across the 2 weeks, we're ahead. So at least he's butted up there and helped us out. So the points that we lost the previous week, he more than made up for this week. That's kind of the way to look at it. Tom Stewart, 152, really, really good, as always. Solid, super, super solid. And then we had Jordan Dawson with 115, Jack Sinclair 132. He put in an absolute blinder. Again, he's kind of like the Jekyll and the Hyde. Can have these ceiling games, but can also have those shit games where he scored a 67 the week prior. So bit of toing and froing, but he's kind of veering more towards having the ceiling type scores in recent weeks. Harry Sheasel absolutely cleaned up, as all defenders do. Historically against St Kilda with a 126, so super happy with him. And that leads me on to talking about Sicily as potentially a VC option coming up against the Saints this weekend, which I'll get into later in this chat when I go through my C and VC options. Chin Cotter, I don't know how he played out the game with a 72. He actually should have been concussed twice, the poor bloke, so hopefully he doesn't suffer any ill effects. He had a sling tackle with Petrevsky-Seton, and then he was cleaned up again prior to that. So was pretty groggy, but played out the game to his credit, and hopefully he can keep playing, just in case we need that cover, of course. But that was the biggest score to his credit as well that he scored since round 7, his second game. When he scored an 88, so happy enough with that. Bont was 126. He was my sort of backup VC option. As you can see there, I'll jump to English. He was my outright VC option with a 134. I did consider Sicily as well due to the matchup with Richmond. There was a nice little positive correlation there. But I wanted to back in English. And I think if English wasn't playing first up, I probably would have gone with it. But I can't be too unhappy with a VC score of 134 from English. And then we had Zeret down on the form, again, 105. Likewise, I think most of Essendon's squad, like the week prior, didn't score too well. They didn't play too well against the Dogs, unfortunately. Then we had Petrarca, 119. Again, just ticking along, sort of veering towards that 120 score over the previous, 4 weeks, 5 weeks even. And I don't think he scored a goal on the weekend. No, he kicked 2 behind. So to be able to score that and play, shared time between forward and mid was pretty pleasing. Lockie Neal, 108. Yeah, is what it is. Rory Laird, obviously, as I said. Georgie Hewitt, he filled in nicely. Sam Doherty, 156. Had that nice little positive correlation overflow from Walshy being out. Walshy, he did very, very well at the time that he was in the game, as I mentioned, 109. Callum Mills, 107. I don't think he actually played much time in the midfield, and I think Horse came out post-match and saying that they gave more mid-time to Goulden. So let's have a quick squiz at this. And yeah, as you can see there, Goulden, with the most CBAs he's had all season with 77, which is disappointing when you look at what he scored, which was 66, the lowest in my team. And then in terms of Mills, he had 3% CBAs. So it'd be interesting to see where he played. I think he might have played along the wing more than anything. Yeah, there we go. More of a sort of high half-back to wing, pushing up. So it was good to see, nonetheless, that Mills actually scored pretty well, considering that. But Horst did say that they were managing him because he came off the previous week's game pretty sore. So hopefully that doesn't mean that they're going to try and manage him in-game or means that he's going to miss any game. So fingers crossed with that. Tim English, 134. Rowan Marshall played very, very well, 124. And again, he was another one that Ross Lyon came out post-game and said that he was actually close to not playing. And they had Tom Campbell lined up as the emergency. Didn't really delve into why that was. But it was a little bit concerning hearing about that. But he actually played 109 minutes, which is up there with almost the most all season. So it was a bit of a strange call hearing that from Ross the Boss, considering that he actually scored pretty well and scored very, very well. So he must have been on some very, very hard painkillers if that was the case, but I don't know what the ailment was, so who knows. Then into the forward line, Josh Dunkley returned in style, 115. Errol Goulden, as I mentioned, 66, pretty disappointing. Connor Rosie played a very, very nice game, 117. Timmy Taranto, 91. Again, his disposal efficiency keeps letting him down and really putting a limitation on the amount of points that he's able to score. Cogs with 114. I reckon, again, he just keeps getting done over by champion data, but it's just par for the course now. And then Darcy Cameron, 135. I reckon he was just reminding a lot of people that traded him out when he missed last week. Just reminding them that, I've got some ceiling scores up my sleeve. So was super happy with that and pleasantly surprised as well against Lycett. He actually had 45 hitouts, 16 disposals, 5 frees, 4, which also helps. So Lycett was giving away frees left, right and centre, but played very, very well. And to that end, I just want to see what the ruck share was between him and Mason Cox on the weekend. So he ended up having 78%. There we go. So that's part of the reason why he scored so well. The second most ruck attendances he's had all season in a given game, and Cox only had 22. So hopefully that persists and is a sign of things to come. And then off the bench we had Seamus Mitchell, 44. And Ryan Marek, 67. So the other option I was going to go with if I didn't bring in Hewitt was potentially put the emergency on Seamus Mitchell. If he scored well, I would swing Roberts forward, loop on his score, and then swing someone like a Dunkley in for Laird to play on field. So that's also, I guess, the beauty of having DPP swings at the moment, and I guess highlights the importance of that if you need to utilise them. And hopefully Laird can come back this week because without both Laird and Walsh, I'm going to be stretched a little bit thin because at the moment I can potentially, if Laird comes back, just use Hewitt and, Matty Johnson. Hopefully he keeps his spot and can get more of an opportunity and stop being subbed. Like, it's just annoying me. Longmuir, he's doing my head in. But yeah, even then I think potentially, as I said, just similar move, shift Dunkley or one of these guys who have mid-forward DPP into the midfield and then, have to rely on a Seamus Mitchell or a Marek. So is what it is. But that's pretty much my team and how it looks coming out of the weekend and heading into this week. Obviously don't have any trades up my sleeve, as I've mentioned ad nauseum. So there's no real mindset around that. Now it's just preservation mode and just praying to the SuperCoach gods for mercy more than anything. And yeah, I guess just utilising the best VC and C options just to sort of leverage the point of difference with the players that I have. I guess the top tier players that I have. And I guess Sicily is going to be the cornerstone of that from here on out. He's only in 15% of teams and his ownership didn't go up at all, really, compared to the week prior, which does indicate that, that would have been the week to get him because his break-even was, I guess was pretty short. So maybe there were some people hoping that he would have dropped in price. But yeah, I think by and large, if you have the cash in the bank, they would have brought him into their side. So it says to me that coaches either don't have the money to bring in Sicily to afford and fund that trade, and secondly, they don't have the trades at their sleeve to bring in a Sicily because you'd probably ordinarily need to use 2 trades in order to fund the trade in of Sicily. So he's going to stay around about that ownership, I reckon, maybe give or take 2% from here on out with people that have trades up their sleeve. But I think, just with the run home that he's got, especially facing St Kilda this week, where he scored a 172 against previously back in round 11, we know what he can deliver against this mob. We know that St Kilda give away the most outright points to opposition defenders, and he's going to have an absolute field day. Let's just have a quick squeeze at this, and just to show you the correlation there. So across the park, like whether you're a wing defender, you're an outright general defender, or you're a designated kicker, which Sicily kind of is, and then being an intercept defender, he kind of veers between 2 to 3 of these categories here. So he is going to have a day out, you'd think, and fingers crossed, knock on wood, that he isn't tagged. But yeah, it's the heat's on for St Kilda. At least they got the win on the weekend, so they mightn't be as desperate to pull a move like that. But yeah, probably a good time, I guess, to talk about VC and C options. So for me, Sicily is outright number one. The difficulty here with Sis is he actually plays the third last game of the round. So the first game on Sunday, I guess there's a saving grace there where there's 2 hours, 10 minutes between his game kicking off and then the next game kicking off between Richmond and Melbourne. The only issue is that your hands are kind of tied, where if Sicily doesn't go as high as what we think he will, it means that your options for captain are kind of limited. If you do have a Gawn, I'd be going VC on Sicily and a C on Gawn potentially against Soldo. Or putting the C on Petrarca, which is what I might need to do and sort of run that risk. I think at this stage of the season, I need to make some moves and just have a bit of a point of difference. Outside of that, I think let's probably go through in terms of game by game. So Collingwood and Carlton, I would say potentially Dacos. He's probably an automatic VC at this stage of the season, even though he got tagged out of the game on the weekend. Be interested to see as to what my mob does. Now that Hewitt especially is getting some extra time in the midfield, if Curnow keeps his spot, which I think he might because of the level of outs, although if Chera and Cripper come back in, he might make way. But if Curnow keeps his spot, maybe there's merit there for maybe Hewitt playing a bit of a loose run with role, so he stays tight on him at stoppages, and then when stoppages clear up, they go their own way. So maybe there's a 50-50 defensive mindset with Hewitt. We all know when he was at Sydney, he can play that role and has done sparingly whilst at Carlton. And then Ed Curnow as well. But Curnow is not the quality of Tagger that he used to be anymore. So I think he'd be an absolutely useless opponent to Dacos personally. So I think he is a definite option. Dakes, as we know, like he's been punching out captaincy scores prior to the weekend, well within the realm of VC lock-in scores with 132, 149, 139, 130 in the previous 4 weeks to the weekend. So he is up there with, I guess, one of my top VC options when we're talking about early rounds. And then for Carlton, I mean, Doherty, I think he does have a pretty good history against the Pies, 107, 138, 135. So maybe he's an option. Maybe if he gets some continues with his CBAs. If Cripps comes back in and say Chera misses, I think Doherty will get some extra CBAs like he did on the weekend. So maybe, but again, he would be a definite pod VC option, only in 10% of teams when we're talking about sort of primos, especially in defence. Moving on to the next game, Geelong Freo. So Stewart, and I can only really talk to the players that I've got in my team, but Sarong and Brayshaw potentially, maybe. But Stewart, he scored pretty well on the weekend, or very well on the weekend. And Freo, this is the first time I know they played them earlier this season where he scored a 91, albeit at Optus Stadium. This is at GMHBA. And Freo don't have a positive correlation to opposition defenders in conceding points. So maybe not an option there, but would be a left field one, no doubt. Bulldogs up against the Giants. I think English and Bont speak for themselves. English will be up against Briggs, he's proving himself to be actually a pretty good ruckman at this stage of the game. 110.88 and 124 in his previous 3 against the Giants. And his previous 5 games, he scored 133, 127, 130, 173, and a 134. And then previous to that, he scored a 99 and a 156. So he is almost a plug and play type option with a VC in terms of early games. And then Bont as well. As I said, speaks for itself. 56% of teams in ownership, 120, 100, 164 in his previous 3 against the Giants, and he's had a plethora of VC-worthy or captaincy-worthy scores. Not having fallen below a score of 100 since round 3 when he scored an 89, and every single game he scored over 110 at minimum. In fact, 112 was his lowest score across the remainder of the season to date. And he scored a 123, 131, and a 126 in his previous 3 games. So yeah, he's definitely up there as an option. I wonder if they're going to use a run with player. I don't know who they'd use, maybe a Ward or someone to try and limit his impact. But Bont at this stage, he's just in stellar form, so will be hard to stop. For the Giants, Cogs, don't know if I trust him. Kelly, likewise. Gold Coast and Brisbane, so Lockie Neal. Both of these guys, I think, candidates for the VC, 108, 123 and 128 previously against Gold Coast when they played back in round 10. He scored a 128. So Neil is definitely an option, and most definitely Dunkley as well. Scored a 148, 116 and 153, that being, of course, the most recent score back in round 10, that 153. So recent form is good form. So yeah, he is an option as well. Going through to the next game, and we have Essendon up against Sydney. So maybe Merritt, maybe Parrish. How do they go against Sydney? Merritt's 104, 57 and a 140. Yeah, don't know about good old Mezet, because his kind of his form's tied in almost with the way the Essendon performing at the moment. Likewise Parrish, so probably still steer clear there. Adelaide v Port Adelaide, so Dawson and Laird. I mean, probably you'd be gutsy to put the VC or the C, especially on Laird first up in a return from injury. 93, 133 and 114 in his previous 3 against Port. Albeit he scored 151 in his previous game that he played. And Jordan Dawson, I think he actually played quite well against them, didn't he? Did he kick the winning goal against him? Or winning behind, one of those. Anyway, he scored a 123 with 74 and a 114 in recent times against Port Adelaide. Let me just reconfigure this so you can see this a little bit better. Yeah, and he scored a 127, 126 and 115 in his previous 3 games. Let's go through Sicily, as I mentioned. He's my outright number 1 VC option. St Kilda, I don't really like anyone. Maybe a Jack Steele, potentially. Jack Sinclair. Could they use a McGuinness as a run-with role with Sinclair? I think that's probably a given, I reckon. But who knows? Richmond up against Melbourne, as I said. Petrarca, potentially. Gawn as well. 133, 87 and a 104 in his previous 3 against Richmond is Petrarca. But again, I'm kind of worried about his split between forward and mid, even though he's scoring quite well with that same role, not being dependent upon goals to elevate his scoring. And let's round it out with West Coast up against North, a bit of a shit kicker of the game, in all honesty. But yeah, I wouldn't, even though North are playing West Coast, I wouldn't be confident in putting because you need to put the captaincy on a player in the last game, which I wouldn't be confident in doing, of course. Maybe an LDU, who knows. But yeah, it's more of a Hail Mary pod type option if you want to go for that. That's pretty much it. That's my team as it looks. In terms of trades, we'll get into that in a little bit more detail in this week's episode or podcast for the round 19 review, round 20 preview. So look out for that hitting the airwaves on Tuesday evening, depending on where you or when you're watching this video, of course. But as you can see there, the most popular trade in, trade out candidates. No surprise that Walshy is the most traded out at the moment. We'll, of course, go through in the podcast and vodcast as to what the best options are to do with Walshy. Obviously, depends on the number of weeks that he's going to miss. And again, hopefully, knock on wood, it's for the short term. But yeah, apart from that, it's just a lot of cash cows that people are moving on to potentially bring in some fallen premiums, as you can see there with the Zach Butters, which I don't know if I'd be bringing him in, but we'll discuss him along with Jack Steele, Libba, of course, along with others that you could potentially target to round out your team if you're looking to complete your side with a few trades up your sleeve. So that's pretty much it. As I said, tune into the podcast and vodcast. Will be released on Tuesday evening. We'll go through, of course, the best VC and captaincy options in great detail, game by game, in a bit more detail compared to what I just did, with all the stats breakdowns and whatnot. So look out for that. Also feature, as I said, talking about the best trade-in and trade-out candidates, and going through the big talking points coming out of the weekend in terms of injuries and whatnot. So join us then, and we'll see you then. Same time, same place. All the best. Cheers.